is fun. Have you ever wondered, oh boy, space aliens sure are interesting. I hope they're not demons trying to trick us. You haven't thought that? Good, you might not need a CAT scan. This person sure has thought that though, so let's take a look at a documentary entitled UFOs, A Demonic Deception.
Xandrius on YouTube.
What you are about to see is hard-hitting evidence that UFO, an extraterrestrial phenomenon, is a demonic psyop. Psyop on the bingo card. And aliens. You're officially halfway to Danzy Time Challenge.
I don't think it's coincidence that the first original alien to come to Earth from the heavens appeared as a talking reptilian creature, giving New Age doctrines such as you are God and you can't.
Okay, let's be clear about this. The serpent in the garden in the original story is not said to be a demon, is not said to be Satan. In Genesis, the serpent is literally that. It is a serpent, okay? They only post hoc ever said, oh, you know that serpent from the first chapter of the Bible? I don't know, that's Satan, I guess.
Cannot die. This is the very same message that we hear given by these entities from testimonies of abductees. Occultist Aleister Crowley was a self-professed wickedest man alive, and
Aleister Crowley was just a horny guy who fucked people by telling them he had magic powers, which he did not have. He was just using this to bang people.
He drew a sketch of a
Rachology says, slightly random fact, the current theory is that if you see an Egyptian goddess depicted in ancient Egyptian art carrying Ankh symbols in their hands, it probably indicated that the goddess is being shown as being on their period. It's interesting.
demon that would often visit him. This demon introduced himself as Lamb, which is Tibetan for the way, an exact counterfeit of the true Lamb of God who is the way, the truth, and the life. Now, we can clearly see that these entities are not visitors from other planets as they claim to be, but are actually demons seducing the world with doctrines of devils.
This is going to be a frustrating video because I'm going to have to debunk demons and extraterrestrials visiting Earth at the same time. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against spiritual... Oh, missed it.
Right over the top of us.
We are getting new video from the Navy showing pyramid-shaped objects.
The last card is the alien card, and all of it is a lie.
Frankly, there are a lot more sightings than have been made public, movements that are hard to replicate, that we don't have the technology for.
We don't have it, they don't have it. The question is, who has it? Who's operating these vehicles?
The information is very compelling. It's real.
Yeah. Okay, it's real. Are they...
I like that all these clips are from Fox News, which is like the bottom of the barrel. Nerdandia Owl says, but are the demon aliens Jezebel? Chibbers the Squirrel says, I know this is nitpicky, but Crowley's lamb drawing was actually supposed to be an idealized self-portrait. It is a big head because Crowley thought he was just that intellectually superior and big-brained.
From another planet?
If it's not ours and it's not theirs, well, then it's someone or something else.
Or you're misinterpreting what you're seeing. There's a pretty famous UFO sighting from the military that when analyzed turned out to be a bird, but they couldn't tell it was a bird. So no, I think these are things that people are either misinterpreting or or in some very few circumstances, it's possible it's like experimental aircraft that the US military is working on.
I can't wait for this report to come out.
There is no longer any doubt unidentified flying objects are real. This one was seen by now retired Navy pilot Alex Dietrich in her F-18 off the coast of California.
Can the news please stop covering UFOs? Who cares?
UFO sightings in New York have nearly doubled since the pandemic began, and we are getting new video from the Navy showing pyramid-shaped objects flying in the sky.
These cell phone photos taken by a FA-18 pilot in March of 2019 show 3 different unidentified aircraft.
Why does Fox News cover UFOs so much? KR Goss says, like, so far I think there was one CBS clip, the rest are Fox News. KR Goss says, my favorite saying, if you're dumb enough, anything can be a UFO. And Mike Mack says, this reminds me of a video that involves someone thinking that airplanes are demons. Oh, God. I'll save that. Thank you. Oh, God, where was the video we're watching? There it is.
Off the coast of Oceania. A Department of Defense spokesperson said, quote, I can confirm that the referenced photos and videos were taken by Navy personnel. The Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force has included these incidents in their ongoing examinations.
A U.S. intelligence report on UFOs is expected to be released very soon.
The long-awaited Pentagon report on UFOs has finally been released.
Friday, the U.S. government released a much-anticipated report on everything it knows about UFOs.
Now, the study released on Friday found only one of those can be explained, just one.
If you're watching this, you're probably a lot like I was. As far back as I can remember, I've always been intrigued with the paranormal, aliens and ghosts and UFOs. And I can remember being in a public school in elementary school, checking out books on ghosts and aliens. And these were books in the non-fiction section. These were photographs with anomalies that looked like ghosts and aliens and UFOs. And I always wanted to know the answer, what's out there? Sadly, the church didn't provide me with the answers I was looking for, and I went down the road of the occult. To me, Christians were very...
What? I need to know about aliens, so I'm gonna go join the occult, okay? I specifically want to meet Ghost Patrick Swayze, so fuck off, Jesus. Radioology says, did you see the Corridor Crew guys debunk these Air Force videos mostly by explaining how camera lenses work and relative velocities? Yes, I actually did see that. It's interesting how even a little bit of basic understanding of the technology can be used to debunk this stuff. Check out that video, by the way, if you haven't. It's interesting. Morak says, remember in 2019 when NPR reported on a sighting of a chupacabra in Montana? Like, a bunch of cows died and they had weird holes in them, or so the report went. Could the news stop reporting on bullshit? That would be awesome. And then Daddy Sume says, Hannah, I demand to be given the VIP badge, and that's why you won't be given one.
Very narrow-minded, and if something didn't make sense to them, well, it must be evil.
I'm aware of the Falun
so
Gong
I wanted to find out for
cult,
myself what this was all about.
them.
Now that I have come into the truth about this topic, I don't want others to have to go down the road that I did. As Bible-believing Christians, I believe that we do have the answers, and I stand on 1 Peter 3:15, which says, but sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear. I believe we should always be ready to give an answer, even to tough questions like these. When the disciples asked Jesus what would the signs be like of the last days, he always talked about deception. Let no man deceive you by any means. And in Revelation 12,
did he say it's going to be space aliens, bros? Sky Comet Fallen says, a lot of alien abduction stories are actually cases of sleep paralysis, which isn't just a meme, but a sleep disorder where the body fails to unparalyze itself upon waking, and often the patient is in half-dream state, so they often hallucinate. Usually the hallucinations are described as humanoid beings standing over them and or holding them down, and are usually scary. I studied this briefly during my undergraduate psychology studies. Yeah, I think Peter has experienced that based on what he has described. I've only had that happen once. It was awful.
12:9 it says, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. What kind of deception would it take to deceive the entire world? We're talking about different nationalities of people.
How about you just don't necessarily take it literally? Because whether or not you believe in Jesus or the supernatural abilities of Jesus, recognize that the Bible was written by mortal hands and edited by mortal hands, and therefore is open to interpretation or open to people writing kind of whatever they want. It's not necessarily magical. I don't think it's magical at all. But, like, even if you think it's a little magical, do you have to assume everything it says is literally true? Just saying. Morok says something about poop and his butthole. Peter did talk about his butthole, yes.
With different cultures, different religious ideas, and different worldviews, how on earth could there be one giant deception that would deceive everyone on the earth? Revelation 13:13.
There probably won't be. Lily Lovestuff says, "Hi, I have sleep paralysis very regularly, like 3 to 5 times a month. Ooh. And my sleep paralysis demons are gray aliens my sister sees the Hat Man. Those all sound horrifying. I'm very sorry. Again, like I said, I've had it happen once, and I never want it to happen again. If I was having it 3 to 5 times a month, I'd be afraid to go to sleep."
And 14 says, "And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwelleth on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast." So now we know that the deception is going to be through miracles. Matthew 24:24 says, "For there shall arise false Christ and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect." Here again, we see these signs and miracles that are being presented by false Christs and false prophets. The purpose of this documentary is to do what Ephesians 5:11 says, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. The media is no...
The funny thing is, if you take this literally and really think that this is a prophetic statement that is bound to happen, no matter how hard you prepare yourself as a Christian, you're going to be deceived most likely, because the prophecy says most will be deceived, so it has no bearing on whether or not you have agency in order to try and avoid the deception. If the prophecy is destined to come true, you most likely will be deceived if most Christians are to be deceived and you are a Christian, just statistically. So, what's the point? That's the problem with predestination. Doesn't make your decisions very important. Tucker White says, "That's a lot of blackout on that paper. There's no way we didn't lose context with that." And Mike says, "AKA QAnon." It sounds a little QAnon-y, yeah.
No longer calling these sightings swamp gas and weather balloons. And it isn't tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorists that are saying UFOs are among us.
Again, UFO, the literal definition, does not mean alien spacecraft. It means unidentified flying object. It does not mean it's an alien.
Now it is the military.
To fighter pilots who reported seeing unidentified flying objects.
Every day for at least a couple years.
This was extremely abrupt, like a ping pong ball bouncing off a wall. The ability to hover over the water and then start a vertical climb from basically 0 up towards about 12,000 feet, and then accelerate in less than 2 seconds and disappear is something I had never seen in my life.
In my position as the ranking member of Terrorism and Counterintelligence, we need to know what this is.
It's clear to see that pop culture is obsessed with outer space and aliens and UFOs. You can hardly watch a kid's show or a movie or a comic book or an advertisement that doesn't show a UFO or an alien. And it's not...
I don't know if that's true, but yeah, space and sci-fi and aliens are very popular, like, concepts to put in media because they're interesting. I don't know.
Just in worldly entertainment, it's also in Christian media.
And I'm Bubbles from the Elevation Church Kids podcast, Adventures of the Star Keepers.
Around March of 2009, History Channel had a new show called Ancient Aliens. This took the idea of believing in aliens from your wacky fringe theorist to the scientific and historical world.
No, it doesn't. It's still crazy. Ancient Aliens is not like any sort of legitimate source of information. No, Ancient Aliens is bullshit. Don't, like, if you want to watch it to laugh at it, that's fine, I guess. But, like, Ancient Aliens is not some sort of peer-reviewed, like, publication that is giving out accurate information. It's conspiracy garbage. Lily Lovestuff says, "Wait, is VeggieTales demonic now?" Always has been. Tucker White says, and our evidence of UFOs is this blurry video. Jesus Christ, we pour close to $1 trillion down the military money hole and we can't get 4K pictures, videos of aliens.
The show propagates the ancient astronaut theory, which is the idea that ancient civilized cultures were actually higher advanced technologically than we had ever thought. They show ancient sculptures that depict men wearing suits that look like astronaut suits. They show ancient artworks and etchings and sculptures that resemble alien greys and flying saucers.
I like the idea that they had incredibly high technological achievement, but like representative art, still not that great.
After some years going down the road of the occult, I eventually came back to Christianity, and as a new believer in Christ, I began to watch this show looking for answers. And I remember distinctly how they portrayed the Exodus story of Moses and the Israelites following the beam of a UFO through the wilderness. Even the pillar of cloud could have been exhaust fumes from a UFO. This was a
Wait, why would a UFO have exhaust? It travels interstellar, but it has an exhaust port? Is it using an internal combustion engine or like jet fuel? How does that function?
very intriguing idea to me because I believed in extraterrestrials and that God created all things. And if God sent angels on missions to help men, why wouldn't he send his other creatures on other planets to help men? As I continued my lifelong search for truth on this matter, I found out that militaries of the world, including the US military and the Nazis, have created flying saucer crafts.
The US military, Air Force tested saucer type designed crafts for a very short period of time. It did not go well and they scrapped it. I've seen footage of it. It's pretty funny. Miracle, thanks for 8 months.
So this made me wonder why our minds always went directly to outer space when we would see these things flying in the sky. How come our minds weren't thinking of secret military craft, but instead thinking of aliens flying saucers?
Yeah, that's some footage of the saucer thing. It didn't work. Tucker White says, also, I love how Moses and the Jews followed a beam of alien light, yet still took 40 years to make a trip that should have taken a week. That's a misunderstanding a lot of people have. The trip they didn't get lost for 40 years. They disobeyed God, and therefore God said, you have to stay in the wilderness for 40 years. It wasn't them being lost. They were forced by God to wander for 40 years. Cold Stare, thanks for 22 months.
The answer is pretty clear. Since the dawn of sci-fi novels and radio and television, this idea of alien...
Oh, and Tube Man, thanks for 20 months, says, wow, a whole 20 months of this dissenting train ride into the conspiracy-laden hellscape. Raycheology with 50 bits says, genuinely unemployable archaeologist though I am, I feel it's not hyperbole to say that the History Channel's Ancient Aliens did more to inculcate racist views of the past into the general public than anything else in the last 50 years. That sucks.
And men flying around in saucers has been implanted into our mind for generation upon generation. Then I seen a United Nations speech from September 21, 1987 by Ronald Reagan that made me question, is there a reason for all this propaganda? Could there possibly be an agenda to why the leaders of the world would want us to believe this idea that alien creatures are flying around in our atmosphere? These are the words that Ronald Reagan spake at that United Nations meeting.
In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Oh God, he's off script again. Ronnie, no! Stop! You're supposed to be talking about Gorbachev. Please stop. Don't talk about aliens at the UN, sir. Sky Comet Fallen says, God's a dick. Why would anyone worship that jackass? Maps and Mimic says, still we don't have any physical evidence of them living in the desert for 40 years. LOL.
And yet I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Ironically, 32 years later...
Oh, no. Was he going to compare communism to aliens?
On December 20th, 2019, President Trump unveiled the newest branch of the military.
Because space is the world's newest warfighting domain.
The United States Space Force. So now the military is protecting the land, the sea, the air, and space. But
again, Space Force, as of right now, is basically the division of the armed forces that deals with space logistics. It deals with their satellites, their intelligence gathering, using their satellites, maintenance, stuff like that. They're not fighting things in space. They're just making sure that they can, like, deal with their array of intelligence satellites.
It wasn't until the
and communication satellites, all that stuff.
COVID pandemic hit in 2020 that things began to get a little strange.
It is not a branch of the Air Force. It used to be, but they split it off.
Suddenly, every
unless they absorbed it back in after Trump left, I don't know.
Mainstream media news.
But I know the idea was that it was split off into its own thing. Tucker White says Ronald Reagan talks about antagonisms that separate us as if he wasn't one of the main perpetuators of it. Also, since we mentioned St. Reagan.
News source was talking about the government releasing everything.
How many people were in Space Force? It was about 5,000.
They knew about UFOs and how that was actually part of a newly passed COVID-19 relief legislation.
Force, yeah. The Corona Relief Bill the President signed last month to disclose what they know about UFOs within 180 days.
U.S. intelligence agencies have less than 6 months to disclose what they know about UFOs. It's all part of the coronavirus relief deal.
They did, and it was basically like, yeah, sometimes we see stuff, we don't know what it is. That's weird. Freaking Out says, holy fuck, breadlines, vodka? Must be Martian shit. There's no way humans invented that.
President Trump signed back in December.
When he signed the massive $2 trillion COVID relief and government funding bill last month, he triggered a countdown for U.S. intelligence agencies to tell Congress what they know about UFOs.
Oh, it's 100% in charge of our nuclear launch platforms in space, specifically the Hercules array. I didn't know we had launch platforms. Oh, is this from a movie? That makes more sense. I was gonna say, I didn't know that was a thing.
So far,
Sky Come Up Fallen with 1,000 bits, thank you, says, we don't have any evidence that they were slaves, let alone in Egypt in the wake of 10 plagues and wandered for 40 years. There is circumstantial evidence from similarities in mythology that the Israelites may have once lived in or around Egypt and were influenced. However, they likely were never enslaved there. Yeah, I've heard that.
The military that's been on the news has said that these crafts are not ours and they're not theirs, so they must be someone else's.
We don't have it. They don't have it. Who's operating these vehicles?
If it's not ours and it's not theirs, well, then it's someone or something else.
So the question is, are they from another world or another dimension? The History Channel is
neither. Again, they're either just like birds or something that we're seeing weird because of the angle or whatever we're seeing them from. They're an issue with the camera, or there's some sort of experimental aircraft in probably a very few rare situations.
Propagating that these beings are from another world.
Could mainstream scientists be discovering the home worlds of extraterrestrial visitors? For ancient
experimental. I know. I have mush mouth today.
On theorists, the answer is a resounding yes.
The big revelation will not be, do they look like us, but we look like them, because we are their offspring.
But let's look at some of the spiritual aspects of this phenomenon. In 1917, on the 13th day of the month from May to October, 3 shepherd children said that they saw an apparition of the Virgin Mary.
What some Catholic theologians believe was the Virgin Mary.
On October 13th, 1917, a crowd of 70,000 gathered to see this apparition.
70,000 people came to this same sheep pasture.
As the crowds raised their eyes to heaven in prayer, they would witness the promised miracle, confirming everything that the children had said. They saw the sun dance. This spiritual apparition appeared as a glowing disc flying around in the heavens.
Where did these 70,000 eyewitnesses go, by the way? Did someone just say there were 70,000 people there? Just curious.
Much like many of the UFO sightings.
And people said that they saw a spinning silver disc.
The kids were given 3 messages. The third message apparently talks about extraterrestrial life.
Many people involved in the New Age beliefs and practices have experiences with star people or star seeds, also known as indigo children.
They call them indigo children and say that some of these kids can even see the spirits of the dead.
They cannot.
The belief that certain people originated as extraterrestrials and arrived on Earth through birth or as a walk-in to an existing human body.
Starseeds are people, or souls more likely, that find it very difficult to be here on Earth.
This is kind of hard to talk about, but basically the whole starseed, indigo children thing is either people self-identifying as such to kind of feel special, or on some occasions it's parents who are dealing with non-neurotypical children who don't know how to define that and don't want to deal with like non-neurotypical children, so instead they adopt some new age woo-woo bullshit in order to explain this away instead of getting their kids support that would probably help them function better. It's really fucked up. It's fucked up. Lily Love Stuff says, Hannah, you don't know about the miracle of Fatima? Brush up on your alien BS.
Because apparently Earth is not really their home.
Starseeds are highly evolved souls whose sole origin is from the stars. Starseeds are souls who originated in the Pleiades.
Starseeds are beings who have spent majority of their lives on different planets. The first sign that you are a starseed is that you've always felt like an alien.
Oh my god, a lot of people feel that way. And again, like I said, this is often used if someone has kids that are non-neurotypical, or perhaps people who are non-neurotypical themselves, who weren't diagnosed as children, and they don't really know what to do with this feeling of alienation. Not to mention, just people even who are neurotypical feel alienated from society sometimes, or are different in some way, and want to find some excuse, some reason that they can understand why they feel different from the people around them. There's nothing wrong with, you know, feeling different and wanting to find your place, but trying to fill that void with some, like, nonsense like starseed, it's not good, it's not healthy, it's not helpful. Felicia Angel says, no, starseeds are things that the last villain in Sailor Moon was after. Get it right. I haven't seen Sailor Moon since I was a kid, so I can't get the reference.
It is a variant of the belief in alien-human hybrids. The question is, if these star people are visitors from another planet, how can these physical beings enter into the body of another person? This actually sounds more like the accounts we hear in the Bible of unclean spirits entering into human beings.
That didn't happen either.
24 says,
that was mental illness. People in the past had mental illness that people didn't understand, so they called it demons. Rachology says, if people would like to see the dead and are able to follow ethical standards and show actual respect, then you can just volunteer on an excavation. Oh.
When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places, seeking rest, and finding none, he saith, I will return unto my house whence I came out. We see that it is actually an unclean spirit that can enter into the physical body of a human being, whereas physical beings from another planet seems a lot less unlikely to be able to enter into the body of a human. Roger Morneau, later in his life in the early 90s, shared his testimony of how he was involved in a secret society of demon worshippers, and he said that a satanic
He's a liar!
High priest told him that the Grand Master, or
and that's not my opinion, that's a fact.
Satan had a deception plan for humanity, that demonic spirits would pose as visitors from far distant galaxies. He also said that it would be during a time of great calamity on the earth, and when New Age beliefs were running rampant.
I just want to point out, if you want to be a grifter and like find a really, really easy audience, then be one of those people who claims like, oh yeah, I used to be a Satanist, totally, and we had so many rituals and we slaughtered the innocent, and yeah, I totally came to Christ, and now I'm gonna warn you all about the dangers of... You just make up a bunch of horrible shit, and then like evangelicals will throw money at you to confirm the wacky things they believe. It's a common trope in terms of like scams. So I don't recommend it. I think you should be honest. But if you're looking for an already baked in audience of whack jobs, there you go. Fake former Satanist turned Christian is a good career option for you.
rampant.
Roger, when I was a teenager back in the 1970s, I remember a song that came out talking about the age of Aquarius. And since then, we've seen the development of the New Age, and I wondered if back when you were involved in spirit worship, if they talked about New Age at all.
Oh yes, it was a big thing that was coming up. One of the major deceptions of the last days. In the
last days. This videotape is from 1995.
Priest told us we talked about.
You know, the last days, the last 30 years, close.
Quite a while. And then he said, could I have a bit more? Your time I want to do something very fascinating. He says the grand plan, the master's grand plan for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. So we continued, after we expressed ourselves that we're deeply interested to know more about the activities of the spirits. And he said it's going to be done in a unique manner.
What do you think this guy's net worth was based on him coming in and lying to people at churches and on videos like this that were pretty popular in the 90s? Popular enough that I literally have a tab open over here that's a whole channel, Adult Demon Cassette, that features ripped VHS tapes from the 90s and 80s about this like satanic panic Christian VHS type stuff. People made bank on this. Like, people made a lot of money and continue to make money on this, like, I used to be a Satanist lie. It's really interesting. You'd think they'd learn that they're being lied to at some point, but no. You can still do it. Again, I wouldn't recommend that. That's fraud. But, you know. Logarth says, you say that like the end times didn't start in 2000.
This grand plan is going to take people are going to eat the stuff. Because it says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet unless something seriously proper is done to avoid it.
You're literally just like cribbing from like sci-fi at the time. This isn't even like a new trope in 95, the idea of like aliens showing up to show humans like, oh, you better do something. Thanks for 50 bits, Sume.
And went on saying that they will claim to have out-of-body experiences. Are you familiar with out-of-body experiences?
I've read about them.
In other words, so there's some persons are supposed to be able to, they believe in their...
People don't do that either.
Immortal soul.
Astral projection.
Yes, right. Goes into different parts of the world and sees things and come back and then they write all about it,
I've heard of that.
So, due to the fact that the millions of the earth, people, believe in people having an immortal soul, it's just be readily accepted.
I think billions of people believe that. Christianity is very popular. Islam, I think, also believes in an immortal soul. Don't know about Judaism. I know they believe in, like, Sheol, and people go there, I think, but I don't know. But yeah, a lot of people believe in the concept of a soul. Rand the Fool says, ooh, with 100 bits.
When the spirits will, through a trance medium, converse with influential people of the line, you see.
Now, what is a trance medium?
It's a channeler today.
What is known today as a channeler?
Channeler, yeah. Okay. Shirley MacLaine's experience of getting involved with spiritism and with
Dream
the,
SMP, thanks for following. Or first time chat, rather, sorry.
I taped the whole thing.
Puka, thanks for 16 months.
And you were hearing the fulfillment of...
What's a trans medium? It's me when I pretend to talk to the spirits with my crystal ball.
What this high priest had said 45 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of New Age,
speaking of which,
practices involves being a channeler or a medium for spirits, as well as extraterrestrials. There are thousands of these sessions recorded where a person willfully allows their body to be inhabited by an alien being and to...
They're lying or they're crazy. People cannot... This isn't a thing that happens.
Speak through them to give a message to humanity.
Look into the ball and tell your uncle you miss him. Halloween Town says you are missed. Random uncle I have no way of identifying in the spirit realm. Ooh.
Humanity. This practice is becoming more and more popular among young people today as influencers of the world are promoting this idea.
Bunch of spaceships. There were like 5 to 7, and I don't know why I didn't like try to take a picture of it. I just looked at it.
Kesha says that it was her interview with Demi Lovato that intrigued her into channeling alien beings.
With Demi Lovato.
Is Kesha crazy? I can't say I'm very familiar with Kesha. She did the one that's wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy, like a decade ago. I think that came out when I was in high school. Felicia Angel with 100 bits says, wait, so is this you, Hannah?
Eeny, meeny, chili beanie, the spirits are about to speak.
Are they friendly spirits?
Friendly? Just listen.
Otto, I loved the conversation we had.
Maps and Mimic says, can you tell my anti-vaxxer uncle who died of COVID we miss him too? Ooh, you're missed. You also probably should have gotten vaccinated. Ooh.
Because
hydrate.
She just turned me on to like a whole new. There are a couple books she mentioned and an app she mentioned that I immediately downloaded, and I made my family for Christmas. I was like, all I want for Christmas is us all to meditate and try to channel extraterrestrials. And they're like, okay. So I'm like trying to get all my friends and family.
What breaks in people's brains when they get rich and famous that makes them like this?
Family into meditating the aliens to us. So that's my new hobby because of Demi Lovato.
Summoning that. Thank you, Demi, for that.
Demi Lovato was featured in Christian Broadcast Network News as saying that being baptized in Israel filled the God-sized hole in my heart. In October of 2019, she posted a photograph
I think,
of herself on Instagram being baptized in Israel with this post. I am an American singer. I was raised Christian and have Jewish ancestors. When I was offered an amazing opportunity to visit the places I had read about in the Bible growing up, I said yes. There is something absolutely magical about Israel. I've never felt such a sense of spirituality or connection to God, something I've been missing for a few years now. Spirituality is so important to me. To be baptized in the Jordan River, the same place that Jesus was baptized, I've never felt more renewed in my life. This trip has been so important for my well-being, my heart, and my soul. I'm grateful for the memories made and the opportunity to be able to fill the God-sized hole in my heart. Thank you for having me, Israel. Here, Demi Lovato shares on the Dr. Phil show of how she was prophesied over when she was a small child, about how she would use her musical gifts to reach thousands.
I went to church camp one time, and there was somebody who spoke in tongues over me, and I grew up Christian, so I wasn't familiar with this experience. And I remember them prophesizing over me, saying that one day you'll be a hero to tens of thousands of people. And luckily my platform has reached many more through social media and through my work, but it was that
So the prophecy was wrong. They undershot it. Good to know.
day that she said, you'll be a
Yeah, isn't Demi Lovato into like aliens and shit now?
hero to thousands of people, and she said it would be through the arts. And I knew in
I
that
assume
moment
this is
that
before
if
they
I
came
ever were
out.
to make it as a singer,
I don't
I
know
kind of
that.
made this pact with God that said, God, if you give me the opportunity to live my dreams, I will pay you back, and I will live my life in hopes of helping others.
And here she is less than 2 years after being baptized in the Jordan River, telling Kesha that she can summon UFOs and channel aliens.
The frequency of the city was just super amazing, and it was super easy to make contact. We had been meditating all week, and then it only took us 10 minutes before we looked up and saw we saw a ship at what looked like a Concorde plane, you know, those like black ones that look like triangles. Looked like that, but it had 2 red lights, and then at one point the ship just separated into 2 different ships. Like it can't
Did you do a bunch of drugs while you were in Jerusalem? Question.
explain it, but you're seeing
Lily Love Stuff says, yeah, it's from before they came out, and yes, they have a show about aliens and stuff.
Yeah, and you're just like,
show this cute pic.
cool, so everyone else saw that? Yeah. All right, so what, and then you're just kind of, and then there's this surreal moment of like, so do we go inside? Like,
this New Age idea of being able to channel other beings is nothing new. It's in the book of 1 Samuel, where Saul goes to find a medium to speak to the dead. These New Age concepts have been creeping into the church for generations now, to the point where Demi Lovato claims to be a baptized Christian who can meditate and channel aliens. She's using her large platform to influence others into doing the same thing.
Okay, rich people do crazy shit. That's not a new thing.
This is exactly what Roger Morneau said that the Grand Master, or Satan's plan was for the world.
Spirits, living spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies. When the spirits will, through a trance medium, converse with influential people of the light.
Many testimonies of people who claim to have been abducted by aliens describe these alien beings as looking like perfect angelic beings with blonde hair and blue eyes.
That shit's always come off as so fucking racist to me, that they depict like these alien overlord, ultimate alien people as this weird Aryan group. That always made me super uncomfy. Lily Love Stuff says, I had an Uber driver tell me that he was part Anunnaki and his uncle was an alien channeler. Generally my favorite ride to the airport ever.
Gray frog-like creatures and reptilians. I don't think it's coincidence that the first original alien to come to Earth from the heavens appeared as a talking reptilian creature.
As I said before, that's not what Genesis says.
Giving New Age doctrines such as you are God and you cannot die. This is the very same message that we hear given by these entities from testimonies of abductees.
That's also not what the serpent said in Genesis. The Genesis serpent basically said to Adam and Eve, the reason God doesn't want you to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is because you will be like God and that you will have moral agency, basically. You'll understand the difference between good and evil, and it won't just be all about obedience. You will have moral agency, which they do eat of the tree, of the fruit, and they do gain moral agency. The snake is not lying.
When they see us
reptilian on bingo, yeah?
worrying about things like death, they find it hilarious. And when they see us like running around like headless chickens, just to create money, just to keep ourselves alive, and they know it's all a big joke because you can't die anyway. And they say even if we did die, you can choose to come back from the death state.
Occultist
Yeah, that's reptilians. Daddy Sume says, this one time I was abducted by aliens. They looked like Cletus from down the street, and it was like the headlights from a truck were shining through my window. The aliens must have known about Cletus and his talking habits in his truck and tried to make me think that Cletus was kidnapping me, but it was really them.
Aleister Crowley was a self-professed wickedest man alive, and he drew a sketch of a demon that would often visit him. This demon introduced himself as Lamb, which is Tibetan for the Way, an exact counterfeit of the true Lamb of God who is the way, the truth, and the life. Now, we can clearly see that these entities are not visitors from other planets as they claim to be, but are actually demons seducing the world with doctrines of death.
I'm pretty sure Aleister Crowley just did a lot of drugs. Pretty sure it was drugs. He did all of the drugs. Sky Comet Fallen says, the snake didn't lie. God lied. He said the day you eat of it, you will die. Adam and Eve canonically live over 500 years after that. The liar was God. I agree.
Devils. Many will be deceived and fall away from the faith and give heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, just as Demi Lovato. This idea that these aliens are actually demons in disguise is not just a Christian idea. Jacques Vallée, the author of a book called Messengers of Deception, said this in an interview.
In your books, particularly your most recent book, Messengers of Deception, which is many years old, you suggest that UFOs are deliberately trying to manipulate our subconscious mind to create a mythology in our culture about themselves, which is one of the reasons that they're both physical and concrete, yet very elusive at the same time. Do you still feel that way?
I think that from my own point of view, I'm going to be very disappointed if UFOs turn out to be nothing more than visitors from another planet, because I think they could be something much more interesting.
Wow, those are some high standards. If UFOs are just aliens, I'm disappointed. You're setting yourself up for disappointment, sir. They're not even that. They're just birds. Tucker White says, "Oh, please. Everyone knows aliens look like eldritch horror cuties with the purple tentacles and multiple hidden mouths, and are huge D&D dorks who love to write fanfics." Morak says, "I've seen some weird stuff in the past, but as a rationalist, I'm pretty sure what I've seen were just a mountain lion with mange and a Civil War cosplayer who wanted to scare kids at Devil's Den."
Something from another dimension, a space or time?
Here are objects, I think we have to call them objects, that are physical, that interact with the environment, that cause effects on the witnesses, on the psychology and the physiology of the witnesses, and leave traces on the ground, and yet are appear to be capable of manipulating time and space in ways that go beyond what our physics understands today.
Eddie Bravo on a podcast with Joe Rogan talks about William Cooper, the author of Behold a Pale Horse, and how while working with the military actually believed in aliens and UFOs because he saw them with his own eyes, but then began to wonder if he was being deceived.
William Cooper, he wrote Behold a Pale Horse. He wrote that book. He's like,
if you ever are about to find yourself citing something someone said on the Joe Rogan Experience for any other reason than to make fun of Joe Rogan and or his podcast, please reconsider every standard you've ever had for a source. Kingdom Reborn, thanks for 14 months, says thanks for the fun. Thanks for watching. Daddy Sume says Devil's Den is part of the battlefield of Gettysburg, supposedly the most haunted place in the entire battlefield. So, zero haunting, same as the rest.
Probably considered the Helio Gracie of conspiracy theories.
Lily Lovestuff says Eddie Bravo is also a flat earther and friends with Alex Jones. Shocking. And wow, Joe Rogan had him on the podcast. Such high standards of quality for that show.
William Cooper, he was in charge of putting together the documents for these top secret Office of Naval Intelligence meetings. He thought they're trying to get us to believe in aliens so they could fake an alien attack, so that'll usher in the New World Order. Because what happens if the aliens attack? We all unite. In all the movies, you see them in the movies like, oh, they're attacking, let's call China. We're all together, we all unite. That's the whole purpose of everything. William Cooper, he was the guy who he was like, aliens exist. I'm looking at these documents. They're having these meetings about this crash. He's got his own little private radio and then he's like, oh, these are just setting me up. This is all. He goes, they're setting up a fake alien invasion. That's what they're doing.
Sounds paranoid. Auntie Pretzel says, starting to see where Edmund Macmillan got his inspiration for The Binding of Isaac. Haven't played it.
Okay. Or could it be manipulated purposely by people who have the technology to simulate UFO sightings? And people say, well, of course not. Who would do a thing like that? Well, I would remind you that during Watergate...
Citing fiction as fact for what?
During the Watergate investigation, it was discovered that there was a plan originated in the White House to surface a submarine off the coast of Cuba and paint the second coming of Christ over the island of Cuba using holograms.
That doesn't even make sense.
Which is well within our technology today.
No, it's not. It literally is not. We do not have hologram technology, much less back in the 60s. Or 70s.
Tom DeLonge, former frontman for bands Blink-182 and Angels and Airwaves, has gotten security clearance with the CIA and permission to share information on the subject with the public.
Communication role, it makes more sense.
So they would give some information to you and you would get it out to people. And now why wouldn't they do it themselves? Because they wouldn't have the same platform?
They don't have
access to the same platform that you would have?
They don't have a way to make a movie, a book. They don't know how. Don't have a way to make documentaries. They don't.
I don't know how to break it to you, but the United States intelligence community absolutely has its hands in filmmaking. Are you kidding me? At least as far back as Animal Farm, but I imagine it predates that.
have a way to go on a big show like this.
Tea with Goblin says, I don't know, Crowley was definitely a bit of an asshole, but his biography, Perduabo, is a cracking good read. The spooky bastard got up to some super weird stuff, and to be honest, I'm a little jealous. Be honest, wouldn't it be kind of cool to be super wealthy and spend your life reading occult tomes, having freaky sex magic, and horrifying the prudish Edwardian public? Crowley also reportedly fed bullshit to his high-ranking Nazi occultists during World War II to confuse and undermine Hitler. The last part's cool, but no, the rest does not sound fun to me. Sky Comet Fallen says, interesting historical fact. A mild mass panic was caused once when a radio station thought it would be an excellent prank to act out a War of the Worlds through public service announcements over broadcast. Big scandal of the early 20th century. Wasn't that a myth? I thought I heard that was a myth.
And communicate with young people. They don't do that. I don't believe that some of the events happened on accident. You know, I think that there's been a lot of events that are on purpose. Some have been for show, some have been for, there's a variety of reasons, but I think a lot of it is a control system that's really pushing humanity in a very specific direction.
Listen to this interesting statement he said in an interview on Coast to Coast AM.
But it can do all kinds of stuff. It seems to feed off of fear. It can be very dark and threatening at times. I remember laughing at people who would say, it's not aliens, it's demons. I couldn't laugh anymore. I'm not so sure about that.
There's a...
Demons aren't real. Tucker White says, FYI, this is what I was referencing. I've never seen whatever that is. And Morok says, yeah, the War of the Worlds thing was mostly fabricated by the media to sell copies.
Very, very strong.
We'll do a bingo check after this video.
Between what people think demons are from the Bible and other religions and the UFO phenomenon. And what you have is something that doesn't like man, period.
Carol Rosen was a partner and speaker for Wernher von Braun, who was a leading figure in the development of rocket technology in Nazi Germany. She said in his last years of life, he started admitting some interesting things to her.
My favorite kind of bullshit is when someone just says, like, yeah, before this person died, they revealed a bunch of stuff to me. They're dead now, so they can't corroborate these statements, but trust me, bro. Tucker White says, play a game called Monster Prom. It'll make sense. I probably won't.
When I was a corporate manager of Fairchild Industries in 1974 through 77, I met the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in early 74. Von Braun's purpose in life during the last years of his life, his dying years, was to educate the public and decision makers about why space-based weapons are a dumb, dangerous, destabilizing, too costly, unnecessary, unworkable, undesirable idea. The strategy that Wernher von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in 74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to...
That's not exactly a hard prediction to make in the middle end of the Cold War. Like in the 70s, you were like a decade away from the Soviet Union collapsing. People knew that Russia was America's #1 geopolitical enemy at the time.
To get us and control us, the dirty commies.
Like, that was clear immediately once World War II ended.
That whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based.
Tube Man says, as a former UFO fanatic who tried to contact aliens using psychic powers as a young teen, I thank furry Jesus that I got into anime and furry shit, or else I would have probably been making videos like this. You made the right choice.
Weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over, during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie.
Lou Elizondo, former intelligence officer with
So she's lying.
the Department of Defense, said that one of his higher-ups told him to stop investigating this topic because they already knew what it was.
Which presumably means it's some sort of experimental aircraft or something that this guy is misinterpreting that they already identified to be like a bird or something, and he's just making them look stupid.
This is a person I respected tremendously, very, very senior person. He told me, he said, Lou, I want you to stop doing this. I said, okay, sir, I certainly can, but may I ask why? And he says, well, we already know what it is. Now, at that moment, I honestly thought maybe it was our own technology. I was running up against some super uber secret sap.
I believe that clip, according to the special effects people who looked at it, it wasn't even like a ship. It was just someone misunderstanding what they were seeing.
And, they were telling me to.
Which presumably, I would hope that our intelligence community has people on the staff that would be able to look at the same clip and go, no, this isn't a craft or anything. You're misunderstanding what you're seeing because of how cameras work.
Stop. And I said, okay, sir, so it's ours? And he said, no, that's not what I'm saying. And he said, he asked me point blank, have you read your Bible lately? And I wasn't quite sure where he was going with that. And I said, well, sir, I think I know what it says. Where are you going with this? And he said, well, then you would know that these things are demonic. And
okay, he's just straight up lying too for money. That's a shame.
We should not be pursuing them. Yeah. And he wasn't kidding. Does
this guy have a book that he's promoting? Just curious.
Exactly how he felt.
So this is a Pentagon. This is a Department of Defense official saying, stop looking at UFOs because they're demonic?
Correct.
There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of people who have escaped an alien abduction experience by saying the powerful name of Jesus Christ.
Each one of them said, yes, sir, we've come across cases like this ourselves, where they've been able to stop it using
You're having sleep paralysis.
prayer or Jesus' name. I said, excuse me, how come we have never seen this documented? You're telling us otherwise, that it can't be done, it can't be stopped. First answer they usually gave us, we didn't know what to make of it. I would have been fine with that. The second answer is what puzzled me and got me kind of angry. Because it was that one that I want you to hear for sure. They said we couldn't go there because it might affect our credibility in the realm. Do I hear cover-up? Over the next 10 years, I have now worked with over 400 cases of people that have been able to stop the abduction experience in the name and authority of Jesus Christ. This is documented evidence.
We see that these beings have been visiting Earth all throughout history, and that they seem to defy physics by mysteriously appearing when someone meditates in a field or when their ship splits into two. Many have testified to seeing these beings walk through walls and even abduct them straight through the roof of their home.
Yeah, that's sleep paralysis.
These entities always seem to appear around occultists or people involved in false religions or on hallucinogenic drugs such as DMT, and they
Yikes.
are always sharing an antichrist, new age message that you are gods that cannot die, and that Jesus is not who you think he is, but an ascended master who reached Christ consciousness and ascended back into the universe.
Is this person's opinion that no Christians have ever been abducted by aliens to their own, belief? Again, it's sleep paralysis, but Christians have claimed to be abducted by aliens before.
Universe or to his mother ship. The Bible tells us in 1 Timothy 4:1-2, now the Spirit expressly says that in the latter times some will depart from the faith, giving heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their own conscience seared with a hot iron. Ephesians 6:12 says, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness
Peter's
of this
very
age,
Christian.
against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Mark 13:22-23 says, for false Christs and false prophets will rise and show signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. But take heed, see, I have told you all things beforehand.
Sky Comet Fallen says, gee, I wonder why people be seeing weird shit on shrooms and LSD. Really? How can he be this stupid?
God's word does have answers for us.
I don't know.
He's giving us the answers beforehand so that we can be part of the elect that will not be deceived by this counterfeit. Even the astronauts that work for NASA are telling us that aliens are real.
I would not be surprised if we are under surveillance by alien visitors.
No.
I think they're interested in everything that we're doing.
Carney says, just showed up into some weird spirit stuff. Sounds about right. Hi, Hannah. Hello.
I think just observing our progress. They're looking to see what is taking place on this planet.
I love it up here. By the time she lands in September, her tally will be 666 days in space.
Ironically, in Hebrew, this word means to lead astray, to delude,
No, it doesn't. It's not even spelled the same.
to seduce, beguile, or deceive. And now, one of the biggest trends is to wear this word plastered across your chest and your
Is it a trend? I've certainly seen NASA stuff. I think I own one NASA shirt because I liked the design.
forehead. John tells us in Revelation chapter 16, verse 13 and 14, that he saw 3 unclean spirits like
shirt, yes.
frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirits of devils, working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and the whole world, to gather them to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. Could we be living in these latter times where people will fall from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, like frogs going to the militaries of the world to unite them and create military branches that build weapons towards the heavens to battle against the second coming of Christ? I believe we are...
That doesn't even make sense. Why would you fire a laser at Jesus? If Jesus was real, he'd literally be God. I think God can beat lasers.
Seeing prophecy be fulfilled before our very eyes. Will you today wake up to the signs of the times and take your relationship with Jesus Christ seriously? Begin to dig in the truth of God's word so that we can be part of that elect that will not be deceived by this end times mass delusion.
Well, that was bad. Why? Guys, there might be life elsewhere in the universe. I think it's statistically likely even that there's life elsewhere in the universe. But it's not close to us. It hasn't visited us. I don't even know if it's physically capable for us to ever, like, be able to see anything else in the universe because of the distances involved. Demons aren't real. Science is. Please stop.